So now on to the business of the day. I have with us, we're really lucky to have with us from tonight's show, Claire, Harry, Dan, Hazel. Frankie can't be with us because she is on holiday with a dodgy Wi-Fi connection. Hopefully she might be chipping in with some comments. But Frankie, we miss you. We'd love to have you here, but we know that you're enjoying some well-needed family time. And Dave McBryan's with us tonight, and who was until a few minutes ago the reigning champion. As for the new champion, he will be joining us about 9:30. He has a few things to attend to right now. So I will, without any further ado, I will bring everybody else onto the stream. So that's Claire, Harry, Dan, Hazel, and Dave. Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I don't know about you guys. I was absolutely nervous as hell going into that final. How did it feel, kind of watching it back, thinking how you're going to come across? You know, we heard last week that people had different perceptions of how they thought they'd done. Claire, starting with you, how, you know, because you said on Facebook and Twitter, you tell me how you felt in the run up to it. How did you feel?
To be honest, I was feeling absolutely rubbish because we've been just kept hanging around for such a long time. And I stupidly answered our surgery's request for going for a flu jab the weekend before, and I'd had a bad reaction to it. So I was, I just wanted to get it over with.
So, yeah, so that was your feeling. Harry, Harry, just I say the word and you disappear. Let's go to Hazel. Hazel, welcome to the stream for the first time. Great to have you on here, Hazel. You know, was that your 4th attempt at the Mastermind title? Yeah. How did it feel going into that, thinking, okay, this time I've got a shot at that glass bowl?
You know what, Gareth? I didn't actually expect to get as far as the finals, so I kind of went in there. Obviously, because of COVID, we're all kind of kept in the foyer in the hotel for some time, and some people were talking about their quizzing experiences, and I was thinking, I really have no chance here whatsoever. Do as well as I can, and so whilst it was nerve-wracking, I had this sense of resignation going into it.
Okay, well, I mean, it plays all sorts of mind games with you, doesn't it? Particularly when you see other people that you kind of recognize. Harry, let's try again. How were you feeling before you heard that famous music, when you saw that bowl in the studio? How did it feel? Oh,
it was certainly a different experience. Oh, you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little broken up, Harry. But carry on.
I might have to try a different device. This is rural internet here, so I'll.
Okay, you go and do that, and we'll have a just quick chat to Dan. Dan, same kind of question, really. You know, you got through 2 rounds, you performed brilliantly, and then you're faced with the final. How are you feeling going into that final match?
Yeah, I was pretty comfortable, to be honest, Gareth. So similar to my semi-final, I'd gone into it knowing that I knew my specialist subjects so well. I'd researched it to the nth degree. So I was confident that I was going to get probably all of my questions, or if I was going to get one wrong, it was going to be something incredibly obscure. And as I said in my sort of intro film, but it actually was edited out, that I knew it would come down to general knowledge, but I knew that I'd have to do better than in my semi-final, where I'd scored 24 points. So I actually said I thought that probably 26 or 27 would be needed to win it. As it turns out, even that wouldn't have been enough. So I remember Dave's final from last year, and I remember Dave saying that he didn't think he had done enough. Was it 24 points, Dave? You got to,
right, yeah.
And I definitely sensed that you felt you were a couple light with a couple of players to go. And going into it, I thought, well, if I'm going to get 26 or 27, I need to get 11 or 12 in my first round. And in my first round, I had 12 questions, and in my second round, I'd tried to speed up, but I only got 11 questions. And then you might have just seen a little look of annoyance when the beeper went right on the end of my 10th answer, and I only got 10 questions. So I was sat in my chair, after the first round, thinking, I just don't know if there's going to be enough time to build up a winning score, which is it's a crazy thought when you've got all your questions right. But I always thought I was in with a chance. Yeah.
Yeah, and your semi-final and your first round give you good cause for that. Harry, hopefully we got you back now. How aware were you of how everybody else had done going into the final, of the form of the various different players?
I'm trying to think, because I think by that stage, I think I'd seen, of course, we'd all seen Frankie's heat, and I think Claire's heat had been on by the time we were filming the final. Yeah. So I think those were the only two I was aware of. But I knew some names, and I was kind of like, you kind of know the caliber you're going to be up against in the final. So even if you don't know anybody, you know you're going to have to be pretty flawless if you're going to be able to take home the glass bowl.
Yeah, I think I was the only one who knew that someone had got 27 in the semi-final, because the way they were recorded, it was different order to the way they were shown. And I was on the 6th semi-final to be recorded, but on the 5th one, I could hear from my dressing room, because it was across the corridor, that someone had rattled through and got up to 27, but I didn't know who it was. And then when they came out, they were all wearing masks. And then when we all got together for the final, I thought, I know one of these people got 27 in their semi, but I didn't know who it was. I thought it was either Claire, or it was Harry, or it was Jonathan, but I didn't know which one. So I knew somewhere in the final there was a really, really strong performer. I just didn't know who it was, and then it obviously became pretty apparent as Jonathan rattled through the questions in the final.
We've got a few comments already, so if people have comments, they can put them in the chat on YouTube, and we'll be able to bring them up. So Grace said, that was just a great finale. I've had the utmost respect for all the quizzes, question writers and hosts, and not just for Mastermind, all of them. Great job, guys. Grace is one of our viewers from America. We've got Astra VX. What an excellent final. Well done, everyone. Such great performance from each and every one of you. I can't stress enough, and I think Dan Adler put on Twitter, just how few people have made a Mastermind Grand Final in the 50 or so years that it's been going. It's a very, very small number of quizzes, about 200 or so. You're in very elite company, and you all did yourselves proud. I know you'd all rather be having that bowl on your mantelpiece right now, but I hope you all kind of feel that you did achieve something. Harry's looking around as if to say, well, I nicked it off Jonathan. But I hope you'll come away having watched that and feel that that you did achieve something. Harry.
Yeah, I think so, and especially because you're not only about people who get to the final, because that's what I was thinking when I was going there. Because you're on the plane going over to Belfast, and like, oh, what if I come last? What if I completely balls things up and get like a single figure score or something like that? At the end of the day, I'm in the final, and out of the 100 contestants of the series, I'm in the last 6. And of all the people that apply, which is in the, I think it's in the thousands that actually sort of apply every year, I'm very humbled by the quite rarefied territory where to get to the final in itself.
Yes, good attitude. Gerard is saying it wouldn't fit on my mantelpiece. That's why I haven't entered. You've got to have these considerations before you enter. Dave, you bought a whole new house in Edinburgh to make sure you had the place, didn't you? How did it feel watching kind of the handover? And you've been in this position before, because you've been a 15-1 champion and watched somebody else come along.
In fact, it was Gerard who just commented, who succeeded me as 15-1 champion.
Yeah. So how was it watching it tonight, thinking, a year or so ago, this was me, this was my night, and watching it all going on and knowing what it's like to be there? What was going through your mind?
Well, but funny enough, actually, both times, both the 15-1 final after mine and this one tonight, I knew at least a couple of people in the final. And I sort of read between the lines of their Facebook faces, and although I tried not to find out who'd won, I had a hunch just by you come to recognize the way in which people will put their Facebook posts up about their upcoming TV appearances, about how they feel about it, and I kind of I'd kind of guessed that Jared. I didn't know for sure, but I guessed that Jared had won, and it was a little bit similar with Jonathan tonight. But it was an amazing performance. I mean, I think he's an intimidatingly good quizzer anyway. I think the rest of you are probably fortunate you hadn't seen that semi-final, because that perfect score was just frightening.
It really was something. Before we kind of go on into the bits about the film clips and how the show panned out, we got an interesting question from Joanna, because people are kind of want to know what makes a Mastermind finalist. And she's saying, how did you all start quizzing? Where would a wannabe quizzer begin, aside from pub quizzes, when we can actually go to pubs? And do you devote a certain amount of time to swatting every week? Harry, you said about kind of the quizzing you'd been doing. How about you? How did you get into quizzing?
Very slowly, in a word. I was one of those people who sort of did a little bit of sort of pub quizzing, a bit of, and I did university challenge, not very successfully at uni, and then that was I wasn't part of any like university quizzing society. And then I saw that that documentary that was on BBC 4 years ago, the one with Victoria Coren Mitchell narrating and about showing the quizzing circuit. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll try and do a few of those. So that's how I started doing some of the Grand Prix quizzes, and I've been slowly picking up a little bit over the last few years. I still consider myself a bit of a quiz novice, but probably sort of intermediate now.
I have to say, there's somebody who was watching on Twitter who's going to be very disappointed you're not wearing one of your shirts tonight. But
beige and camel are very boring today.
Hazel, how about you? You've been going at this competition for a long time, but what got you into quiz?
I guess at school, my brother, we had houses in our comprehensive school, and we were in the same house but a year below, which was quite embarrassing. And he was captain of the quiz team, so I got grudgingly allowed into the quiz team, and ended up actually scoring better than my brother in it. But I've basically kind of followed quizzes on telly, done pub quizzes. I do the Guardian quiz once a week. I've never been involved in any leagues or anything like that, but somehow got into television. Somebody dared me to do the Weakest Link in 2006. And I ended up winning it by befriending everybody in the group there, and somehow getting away with it. So Mastermind's been a similar thing. I'm one of these people who sits there shouting at the telly when people aren't thinking about the answers. And then if you're shouting at the telly, you really have to get out there and do it yourself. You can't just take the mickey out of people who are putting themselves forward. So that's been my motivation. But when Harry talks about the circuit and so on, I've never found a way in there. So that would be my next step, almost doing it the wrong way round.
We'll have to have words later. Talking about the Weakest Link, Claire, we saw you in action on the Weakest Link tonight. What was that like, watching yourself back? I mean, I'm sure you've seen it since,
it was massively short.
Was that your first TV experience?
No, that was almost the last of the run. I started in 1990 on 15 to 1, I think was the first. But I did everything that was going around that time: 15 to 1, Catchword, Countdown, 100%, One to Win, National Geo Genius, all sorts of bits and pieces. But I'd never ever done any revision for any of them, which is why I didn't do terribly well. And it wasn't until maybe 2 years ago I had a Skype audition for Millionaire and discovered that I had loads and loads of gaps in my knowledge, which I then took steps to fill. And since then, I have been just learning everything. I've got books of lists and just you name it, I decided to cram it to memory. So I've got all these charts you can see behind me as well. So.
Yeah, good to see. Dan, we know you were on Millionaire.
Missed him in there as well.
Dan, we know you're on Millionaire not so long ago. Where did quizzing start for you?
Well, I'm similar to Hazel insofar as I've never been a part of a quiz team or quiz league. I didn't even know that there were online quiz leagues and so on until recent months. But I suppose sort of part of the rise of the TV quizzer, if you like, insofar as I used to watch them, as a kid. And then I was the sort of kid who always had a Guinness Book of Records and would learn all the stats. I love the sports stats. I like the football annual, and then the athletics annuals. I knew all the records, and I think it's probably through knowing and learning and loving sports that then I used to like books with facts, and I was that sort of kid. But in terms of TV quizzes, my first TV quiz was when we were students. There was a Granada TV's quiz hosted by Stuart Hall called Quiz Night, which in the sort of Manchester region might remember. It was sort of like a pub version of University Challenge, and we went on as students, and you were drinking beers on the set, and it was all a good laugh, but very very much not serious. And then when I was 23, so that would have been in 1996, I went on 15 to 1, the old version of 15 to 1, and then sort of nothing really until I suppose it must have been Sports Mastermind in 2008, and then the last few years 15 to 1 again, Millionaire and Mastermind. But not quizzing in any formal sense. I've never been part of a team, and I don't really do that many pub quizzes, if I'm honest, just because it clashes with other things that I do. But I'm keen to get more into it now.
Yeah. Whereas Dave, you've done a lot of quizzing on both sides of the equation as poacher and gamekeeper. How did it start for you?
Well, actually, I've probably done less TV quizzing than certainly than the list Claire had there, or Dan. I think it's just Mastermind and just the one go at that. Likewise, 15 to 1, Only Connect, and I was on a show called Battle of the Brains. That's it. That's all I've done. But no, for me, it started back when I was a student. I got roped into through a society I was involved in. Got roped into running some pub quizzes, and it was a success. So we ended up doing it. It became a weekly thing, and then by the time I graduated, I'd done that for 2 or 3 years, and I'd written thousands of questions. So I thought, might as well start making some money out of them, and I went into writing pub quizzes as my job. And that was it for many years. I was writing a whole bunch of quizzes around Edinburgh. But I had no involvement with competing or the wider scene. There are no leagues up here. But 25 years of writing pub quizzes, you're bound to attain some of it, So I think I can't remember her name. Whoever was making that comment about aside from pub quizzes. Oh no, you can start with pub quizzes. And the thing is, if you only compete in pub quizzes, though, if you're part of a regular team, it's quite easy to have big blank areas and not learn anything about them because there's someone else in your team that covers that better than you, so you don't need to. Whereas if you write them, or if you start competing in individual quizzes, you have to start filling those gaps. And to my mind, there's nothing like writing quizzes for forcing you to learn a little bit about everything, because you have to write questions on all subjects, and it's even areas that like say football or whatever that I've next to no interest in myself. I've been forced to learn about because I've written so many questions about it. So then, I kind of got into the competitive scene much later. So this pub quiz I've been doing since the early 90s. It was like 2013, I think, the first time I went to a Hot 100 session. But very rapidly realized that I'd acquired this knowledge that put me fairly high up the field at these events, and so in the last 7 years or so, I've been doing pretty much everything regularly.
We've got loads of comments coming through. So Joanna, who asked that question, also huge respect to you all, incredible performances. Dave Workman, who was in the semi-final last week, says we could start a support group for people blown out of the water by Jonathan. He's been there, done it, but he follows it up by saying, but you're all incredible tonight, such brilliant drama. And it was a great final, really impossible to call at half time. T says, and she was on this series as well, it was a truly fantastic final. Well done, everyone. I hope you stop dreaming of the answers. That I see you shaking your head, Hazel. Is there anything that haunts you? All these months on?
I think on the specialist subject, so I think, to be honest, there was no role picking a director, because obviously Cronenberg's, it's over 21 films. They said they do 12 in depth, but you would answer questions on the rest as well too. So, and the source of where the films themselves, IMDb, and a couple of books, Cronenberg on Cronenberg and so on. And I watched all the films, which was quite hard because I'm a key worker at the same time, and I was working quite late, finishing watching a film, taking notes. And I think I missed out on some of the minutiae, and those 4 questions I got wrong in the first round, on the special subject round, where it was those minutiae of the films. 2 of them I had in my notes. So I don't know how everybody else learned. I know Jonathan did cue cards. I had a set of longer notes that I shortened down and became key points, and that's how I focused. And they were in the longer notes and didn't make it to the notes that were in the green room with me. And I think that's where I kicked myself, really. It's probably the choice of the subject, but also kind of not being able to pick between what the questions were. You're double guessing yourself when it's something like film, because there's the narrative side and there's the production side. I could tell you everything about sort of the editors and the people who wrote the music and so on, but I found myself stumped by quite basic questions about films. So,
but on the plus side, you got a call from David Cronenberg, for God's sake. That's fun. Amazing. And Harry got a letter from Jimmy Carter. Dan and Claire, are you regretting doing Somebody Who Was Dead now? Because you could have had a call or a letter or something like that.
But the fact that they don't send you anywhere for the final, and notwithstanding the fact it was sort of in COVID times, but obviously in previous, I don't think Dave's year, but perhaps the year before, when they used to send you away somewhere, I would have swapped my subjects round and done Emil Zatopek, which I did in the semi-final. I would have done that in the final, because I thought it'd be great to be sent to Helsinki or to Prague and get a nice free holiday out of it. And to be honest, if they were sending us, I'd have done the beaches of the Caribbean, not done any revision, taken no points, and just sat for a fortnight. That would have been ideal.
Claire, you Cole Porter, clearly a fan of that.
Yeah. I was embarrassed not to get the begin question right, because it's on my Cole Porter CD, but as an instrumental, so I didn't have the lyrics at the top of my head, and it's quite a basic thing. And in the dressing room beforehand, I was listening to quite a few songs on YouTube, because we had so much time, and that was one that I nearly did and then went on to something else. So that was annoying.
There's a lot of ifs and buts.
Absolutely.
But it is one of those things. But when you're faced by a truly exceptional performance, I guess, and you realise perhaps some of your misses didn't make that difference. Maybe
it made any difference at all. If I'd been on my A game, the best I could have done was second, and that means I would have had to have performed as well in the GK as I did in my heat, and as well on the specialist as I did in the semis. So.
I don't know if anyone even got 29 questions. So I think I had 28 questions. So if I'd got 100% right, I still wouldn't have won.
No, I kept count of questions. Actually, you had 29. You'd have needed 100% to beat him.
Yeah. Need a perfect round to beat Jonathan.
And he had he actually had 31. He had one more than you in both, because he was. I think you each got 10 questions in special subject, except Jonathan, who got 11. And then is the business, I think, that's been discussed on here before, about going faster and speeding John up, which I think Dan and Jonathan in particular did, and it showed that worked, because Dan, you got 19 questions, Jonathan got 20, and everyone else had 17 or 18.
Well, if at this point in the meeting of the Blown Away by Jonathan Gibson club, I can add Jonathan Gibson to the stream and say congratulations.
Congratulations, well done.
It's an honour to be flashed by you, Jonathan.
I assume your phone has been red hot for the last half hour, and you've been pretty busy.
I haven't checked it, but it looks like it might be blowing up a little bit. It's going to be a long day tomorrow, sorting through all the lovely messages.
Well, we are so grateful that you've joined us tonight to kind of recap. We've been talking about kind of sort of the nerves and the preparation and all of that sort of thing, and we were talking about how it turned out to be quite a good plan to pick somebody who's still alive, because you either got a Zoom call or a letter, but it kind of all worked out for you. You got your third consecutive perfect round in your specialist subject. At what point were you thinking, I'm in a good position here? Were you before the show knowing you'd come off a perfect game, or was that added pressure?
That was certainly added pressure, because I knew that I'd got unreasonably lucky in my semi-final, and that by the laws of karma, I needed to be sort of due a fall. And I think that's the inner kind of Scottish Calvinist in me was saying you deserve that good luck, and retribution is coming soon. So on that front, that did add more pressure than it took away. I would say that one of the many ways in which I was quite lucky throughout is by getting basically my first choice for each of the specialist subjects. Like I had quite a few that were rejected at each point, but every time the one that the producers chose was the one that, kind of thinking about it, was, would have been my favorite. And I think I think the way it lined up was quite lucky as well, having Poirot for the first one, because I had basically the whole summer to learn that, whereas I definitely couldn't have learned it properly in a month. And for the final, where I had the least time, it was something that kind of half of it, i.e. the lyrics of Flanders and Swan, I'd sort of known by heart all my life. So I sort of had that half already done. And I really just needed to work on the biographical stuff and the theatres they played and the production of the albums and that sort of thing. So going in, I felt okay about the specialist subject, and I was definitely over the moon to get an extra question under the wire in the specialist subject round. That was fortunate and meant that I got to go last in the general knowledge round, which was my preferred outcome, because then you know what target you're aiming for. So after the specialist subject round, I was definitely over the moon. Although at the same time, knowing that I had got that extra question sort of made me think, okay, so if I only win by 1 point, it's going to look a bit sort of, people on Twitter are going to be saying, well, he only won because he got an extra question. So kind of in my head, playing through months in advance, I was thinking, I really need to win by more than 1 point.
We were just saying before you got here that you also managed to squeeze in an extra general knowledge question, but thankfully you won by more than 2 points. So I
was sat there throughout Jonathan's questions, think, well, obviously I wanted to win, as do we all, but I was thinking, please don't let me lose by a point, because I couldn't have answered my first questions any quicker. I thought if I lose by one point, then it will kick up a bit of a stink from not from us, but from people watching. But luckily, Jonathan just destroyed it. And
I had a moment of great fear of that in our final, because 4 of us each got 10 out of 11, and then the last guy got 12 out of 12. So he had a 2 point lead, although admittedly granted the only perfect performance. But we were all, when I posted that beatable target, I thought, oh God, if I lose by a point here, particularly after a couple of ridiculously stupid mistakes, I thought I'm going to be haunted by this for years. But luckily it didn't happen.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, Joanna just said, Jonathan, you legend. I guess this kind of elevates you to another level within quizzing and kind of within British culture. Mastermind is such an established and kind of famous brand. Dave, what is Jonathan got to look forward to now in the kind of the immediate and medium term? Now he's got the tag of not only Mastermind Champion, but youngest ever Mastermind Champion. And Gavin Fuller, if you're watching, you're welcome to come on and join in. But what lies ahead for Jonathan kind of in the future now that he's champion?
It's a busy week or two of press interest, certainly, but that fades remarkably quickly. So, although unless you actively choose to milk it for all you're worth, that kind of that doesn't last too long. So it's kind of whatever you make of it. But as Jonathan will know, being relatively being involved in the competitive quiz scene, but only for comparatively few years, you'll have been initially you come into these rooms and you say, oh, there's so and so, you recognize all these faces off the TV, and now you get used to the fact that you walk into the room and you're going to be the one that people are recognizing.
That's so insane. Like I remember the first proper sort of like national buzzer tournament that I went to was Scott Bowl in 2019, and genuinely walking into the room, I felt like I was at the Oscars. I felt like I was seeing Ian Bailey and Mark Grant and you, Dave, and David Harris just walking around like it was nothing, and feeling just completely out of place. So I think that is something that I am incredibly proud of, that over the past couple of years I do feel more integrated into that circle of UK level.
Well, I mean, you've been integrated into it anyway by your results and just even regular coming to these things. But now you've gone beyond being integrated into being one of the celebrities that everyone else there will be. Will be. Oh, they're fair.
So what is excited about being in the. Sorry.
No, carry on, Claire.
I get excited about being in the same Zoom room with Anne Hegarty and Paul Sinner.
I tell you what, they will be excited about when next time they're in the same Zoom room as you guys, and particularly Jonathan. I think they're fans of quiz as much as the rest of us, and they love seeing great performances and seeing great quizzes do well. So I think when all of you kind of come across some of the big names, you might be a little bit surprised that kind of they're looking at you in the sort of way that you look at them. So look forward to that. Jonathan, so just to be clear, do you qualify for the Scottish national team, do you?
Yes. Yeah, no.
That's really disappointing. You haven't got a Welsh grandparent, have you?
As far as I know. I think there might be some Irish very far back in side.
I think people will be fighting over getting you international quizzing before too long.
So Gareth, I'm half Welsh, but it probably doesn't help you. But
oh no, it does. If you're half Welsh, that'll do. Yeah.
My mother was from Glasgow.
You're like the Jackie Charlton of Wales quizzing.
Oh dear. Well, it's highly competitive amongst the Celtic nations, but we're not here to talk about the Celtic nations. I mean, I made loads of notes, and kind of feel that I don't know. It's just. There are so many little points that I could ask about, but they don't kind of feel important right now when we're talking about the end of the series. Jonathan, what was that phrase about, when Alexander the Great, cried salt tears because there were no more worlds to conquer and he was only 23 or what? What comes next for you, Jonathan?
Well, I mean, really what comes next is finishing my PhD, because I'm sort of giving myself a year and a half to finish that. And I sort of feel like, in a way, in the last 2 years, even though I've been doing really good work on my PhD, I feel like my work-life balance has sort of become a work-life quiz balance. And in the immediate term, I'd like to sort of focus a bit more on making quiz part of the life segment and getting work back to my main sort of occupation, rather than sort of having two jobs side by side. So I'm definitely going to keep doing sort of online team quizzing, and I think team quizzing is definitely my favorite format. So I'll keep doing OQL, and I'll keep doing the buzzer tournaments whenever they come back in person. But for the immediate term, I'm going to try and scale it back a little bit. But sort of looking further forward, I'd love to have a go at Reign of Britain before I'm 30. That would be a sort of that'd be a medium-term ambition, and not that it would take obviously a lot of work to win that or even get close to winning it, but that would be something that I'd love to have a go at. I mean, obviously the dream is pointless.
Well, who doesn't want one of those Perspex trophies?
Yeah.
Better than a glass bowl. So I'm sure. We've got.
Yes. The other thing you can look forward to is over the next year is feeling tremendously embarrassed if you ever get a question on the muses wrong. Because you know that you have them all inscribed on this bowl. So if you don't already know them backwards, because it's happened to me a couple of times, and I thought, oh bloody hell, I've got that on a bowl. I should know that.
It's so difficult because Avato, Utopia, and Calliope are so similar in terms of the different types of poetry that they represent.
Harry, were you waving there?
I was going to say that Jonathan may be scaling things back a bit, but we've got an OQL rendezvous in a few weeks, I believe, with Magnus and Trebek.
Oh, so we do.
Ah.
Yeah, I can't wait. That'll be really fun.
So for the uninitiated, OQL is online quiz league, which is kind of what it says on the tin. It's an online quiz league. They're recruiting teams and players for the next season, which starts in a few weeks. Go to quizcentral.net if you want to play. But the Magnus and Trebek is a bit like the Ryder Cup of quiz. It's the online quiz league UK and Ireland versus online quiz league USA. So you'll both be playing in that. So that's exciting. I won't. My team came nowhere near. So that's good. Hang on. Gerard's saying, pointless, you're a celebrity. You could do House of Games now. Aim higher. Interesting when you were saying about kind of the work-life quiz balance, because I remember the very first time I did Mastermind, getting knocked out, and I think my Facebook status was, I've got my life back. And then immediately there was a wave of regret, because it's like I didn't want to be knocked out, but on the other hand, I could, I could now not feel guilty if I went 5 minutes and not be working on a piece of quizzing. For the rest of you, have you had that kind of feeling since the final of actually I can get a little bit more normality, or in the case of Hazel, maybe you're just planning your next shot at it?
I've already got I've got a list on my phone of potential specialist subjects already going for if I want to have another crack at it in a few years' time.
Well, I've crossed over to the dark side, as you know.
Yes, so Claire is now on the writing team. So which kind of means which means that for the foreseeable future, you wouldn't be eligible to compete. But if somewhere down the line, you had enough years had passed between writing, would you do it again, Claire?
I don't know. I think there's other things to do. I'm actually auditioning for Brain of Britain tomorrow. So I'm delighted that Jonathan's not doing it yet.
Oh, well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
How about you, Dan? I mean, you've got your running, which I guess is another variable in kind of work life running quiz. For you, are you rebalancing things?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the last year's been a bit weird because I work in the events industry, which has just been totaled by the pandemic. So I did have a lot of spare time to do all the revision. But I mean, normally with my running, I run and train 7 days a week, so quizzing isn't something that I'd normally do. But I'm keen to make more of it. Incidentally, I did audition for Brain of Britain a couple of days ago, and I noticed Dave was on the same Zoom audition. So
yes, I noticed you were there too. I was hoping that wouldn't be outed just yet. But yeah.
I'm glad I didn't apply then.
But no, I'm keen to get involved in quizzing, and we've sort of kept in touch via email. And I'd asked Harry and Claire, how do you get involved in OQL? Because it just seemed a bit of a closed shop to me. And Harry was generous enough to invite me onto his OQL team. So it's a bit late to join him for the sort of matches this season, but for next season, I'll me and Harry will join forces in the same team. So I'm looking forward to that.
And Hazel, I understand you're also in the events industry. Comedy club, is that right?
Yeah, I've run Wivenhoe Funny Farm since 2005. It's a non-profit making comedy night in Wivenhoe. Look at that, get the plug in. But yeah, obviously due to the whole COVID situation, it's been partly online via Zoom and so on, and partly when we could outside with a very, very small audience. So at the same time, I'm kind of also involved with local pantomime, Shakespeare groups, acting. So in terms of doing Mastermind again, I really felt the pinch this time in terms of the work-life balance and so on. I'd love to, because I want to meet Clive Myrie. He seems really lovely. So I might, but it gets silly. It's like an old lady doing it 5 times. I'm not sure. I mean, it might be entertaining for people. I might just go and get knocked out in the first round. It'll be easier this time.
Certainly a lot less work. So what's that, Claire?
I'm trying to get my fitness back. Because obviously didn't spend as much time cycling as I would have done normally because I was nosing book.
Yeah,
And I've just discovered I've got an entry carried over for the Dartmoor Classic, which is in June, and I haven't actually got that long to get ready for that.
I blame Quiz for my lack of fitness as well. Moving on.
I did no jogging or cycling at all, but I never do. So.
Rachel has said amazing final, incredible performances from everyone. Also rather late to this, but thanks to Claire for introducing me to Quizzy Monday Live. This is a wondrous thing. Thank you so much, Rachel. That's a really nice thing to say. We will be back once kind of quizzes, the University Challenge and Only Connect and Mastermind kind of start up again. And we may well do some things on Monday nights in the interim. So if anybody wants to make sure they don't miss anything, click the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything, and you'll get notifications, or join the Facebook group. Follow us on Twitter. There's my little advert. Let me have a look. For anybody thinking about going on Mastermind, I know we've kind of talked about this before, but we might have a number of people who haven't thought about it. Obviously, Jonathan, it's very easy for you to say, yes, do it, because, it's worked out very, very well. But what would you say to somebody who was thinking maybe, I'm not a specialist in anything, and, what would you say to somebody like that?
Well, I would say the key to doing well and getting yourself a solid bank of points is to really think ahead about your specialist subject. And it doesn't necessarily need to be something that you've known all your life. It can quite easily be something that you're a bit interested in and want to learn a bit more about. But I think thinking ahead, how long is it going to take me to learn enough about this to guarantee, 100%, nearly 100% in any specialist subject round that could come up. I think that anyone thinking about applying should definitely spend a bit of time in advance thinking how much time do I need to devote to this. And yeah, I mean, there have been quite a few years before this where I had thought about applying for a bit, but decided that it would just take up too much of my time and I had too much other stuff on, and that it just wasn't going to be my year. So I think that's definitely something to
quite a few years. I mean, how many years can it be, Jonathan? Sorry, I'm laughing. I put off applying for about 25 years before.
Well, 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
It's all relative. Dan, Hazel, Claire, Harry. It
really depends, Gareth, on what you want to get out of it. Because if you're watching it and you're watching the final and thinking, if I'm going to be up against these guys, I'm not going to win. Because anyone watching Jonathan's thinking, Christ, I'm not going to get 29 points. There's no point in me applying. Then there's no one in the country who's going to bother applying if that's the case. But when I went for my audition, it was a physical audition. It was in about February of last year, pre-lockdowns. And there was probably about 24 of us there. And I didn't meet a single person who said, I expect to win. I want to win. I think I'll go a long way. I should get to the semi-final. Everybody just said, I watch it, I enjoy it, and I want to have a go. And realistically, the standard wasn't particularly high, if I'm honest, of the people in there. I don't know how many of them, actually got through the audition. But you don't have to be a champion quizzer to apply to go on it. So I would just say to people, don't be too intimidated by the standard of of the winner of the series. You know, you can go, and if you've got a reasonable general knowledge, you don't have to know everything. Nobody knows everything. You know, it's a bit of fun, and I wouldn't put off anybody who's prepared to do a little bit of homework, which you need to do for your specialist subject, and someone who knows a bit of general knowledge. If you enjoy a pub quiz and you do okay, then by all means apply. And you know, if you don't, it doesn't matter. You know, it's not the end of the world. But
applications are open now, so you know, get your application in. What do you got to lose? You know, Hazel probably already preparing her application for 2 years' time.
I just add to what Dan said. He's absolutely spot on. But I'd assume if you're watching the show that you have an interest in learning things, you have an interest in general knowledge, right? If you're that far, then if you think you don't have a specialist subject, then look at learning something. All three of my subjects I chose, for better or worse, were things that I was new to. I just wanted to learn more about. Some people do it that way. Some people go with things they love. I'd say the middle one, Joe Rivers, it was comedy, and I'm slightly more kind of have more of a relationship with comedy. But sort of, yeah, just go for it. If you're watching the show, then and you want to do it, apply, because you're already part way there by wanting to answer questions, by being into it.
Good advice. I've got a question then, because we didn't hear from Claire and Harry, so I'm going to direct this at you two first. Did you develop any superstitions over the course of the series? Was there anything that you thought, okay, that, you know, I wore that or I did that, so I'm going to try and do it again? Harry, how about you?
I'm going to have to give a very boring answer and say no. I'm not a very superstitious person at all. So occasionally things did cross your mind, like always. Maybe if I wear the same jeans again, I'll be in the same. You know, it'll help. I'll be in the same mindset. But I was like, no, it's.
Okay, I think we lost Harry for a bit. Claire, how about you?
Couldn't let myself get.
I don't do superstitions, so there's nothing like that.
That's why I asked the wrong two people there. Did anybody else have a superstition? Because tell you what, when I first wore a particular shirt and I won and felt really good in it, thought I want to wear that shirt again because it would make me feel comfortable. And it wasn't so much a superstition as a comfort thing.
I had a couple of people who texted me and said, I saw you wore Tiger Woods red. Was it deliberate to, red in the final to intimidate his opposition? It wasn't at all. It's just that I've got no good clothes. And allow me to wear. But looking back, I'll probably say, it was a deliberate psych tactic to wear Tiger Woods red.
In fairness, I was a little bit like you, Gareth, in that, I wore different outfits in the Heat and semi-final, and the Heat, kind of everything went my way, and I got 30. In the semi-final, I felt I hadn't done myself justice. I'd made a few mistakes. I felt I was up against very strong opposition in Evan Lynch, but I felt I'd got away with it because he had a bad day on specialist subject. And we actually did equally on general knowledge, but because I felt that one hadn't gone well. Can I wear the shirt I wore in the first round again in the final? And sure enough, I did.
I actually had to be on my second choice. Sorry.
I was going to say, Jonathan, please tell us you had some sort of quirk. Go on.
Well, one thing that I did do, which was really unplanned, but just because I did it for the first heat, was that on each occasion on the morning of the recording, I'd go for exactly the same walk around Belfast, and I would always put on my iPod the song "Sheriff Fatman" by Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine. And yeah, just for whatever reason, the first time it happened to be top on my queue, and it put me into a really good mood. Just sort of walking around, lip syncing it to myself, and for whatever reason, I decided that had put me into a winning sort of mood, and I did it on the two subsequent occasions as well, and it's a great song.
It is a great song, Sheriff Fatman by Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine. It's absolutely tremendous. Hazel, we didn't hear from you. Please, you seem like the sort of quirky person who would have
The weird thing was, because you asked to bring 3 outfits each time, and each time I bought that bloody green dress with me, and because it's a comfortable dress, and because I put on a lot of weight in lockdown, and I knew that I could trust it to actually hold me in. So they picked it out twice. They picked it out for the semi-final, and I said, "Oh, that dress again." And they went, "Oh, you don't have to have it." And I said, I wasn't bothered. I didn't want to think about what I was going to wear. I was quite happy to wear the same thing. So it became a thing where they made a bit of a narrative of it. When we were doing our videotaping, they started asking me about the looking dress. I'm quite glad it didn't go into it, because it's not the way I think. Although I have burnt that dress now because it is accursed. But
you're not superstitious, but it's cursed. Yeah. We were talking about the filming, the little snippets before you came along, Jonathan. And one of the things I didn't ask was, did they do it between the semi and the final, or did you do it kind of after the final with the benefit of hindsight?
Oh no, I did mine before the final. I assumed that everyone had.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had no idea what was coming when we filmed that. And actually, it wasn't until we filmed the VT that they told me that actually Gavin Fuller was a month or so older than I was when he won. So I didn't know until then that I would have been the youngest ever winner. So that was a bit of a shock.
Have you ever come up against Gavin Fuller before in any competitive quizzing?
I've come up against him since filming the final, when he was one of the very few people who knew that I'd won, because as he contributed to my VT, I thought it was only fair to let him know. And so we came up against each other in an OQL match, and we both pretended that we'd never met before.
So you're a good actor as well as a great quizzer. So this was the final episode of the John Humphreys era.
Almost. I think he's got a couple of celebrity episodes to go.
Celebrity ones, yeah. I mean, yeah.
But I think so. But I think that's just the next 2 weeks. Then that's done.
Yeah. So I mean, there were some telltale little quirks in there, probably a little bit more noticeable. We talked last week about surname quizzing and how top level quizzers give the surname and that's all they give. And tonight we had Turner, yes, Tina Turner. Laurie, yes, Hugh Laurie. Berry, yes, Mary Berry. Led, was it Edith Led? And it was like, and it was H.
It was very irritating.
I guess the one thing was that he was consistent with people on that. I think I don't know, but I mean, we're looking back. He was in the hot seat for 18 years. We've got Clive Myrie coming now. What are your kind of hopes or thoughts for the new era?
From my perspective, I hope puts his own stamp on it a little bit and sort of bring, I imagine in the first series, I don't know, but you would imagine that maybe he'll be sort of going slightly more in the Humphreys mold, questions wise and structure wise. But I imagine over a few years, hopefully he'll be able to, if maybe things like faster questions or a bit of repartee with the contenders might be quite a nice thing to add. Not too much, but a little bit might be, put his own spark into it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I don't know if anyone else noticed it at the time, but throughout the whole process, he never engaged with the contestants. Like before the final, I thought it would be quite a big deal for the crew and for the production and so on, but he didn't even come out and wish us good luck before. After it finished, we were shown to the door, and that we never saw anyone again. It just felt like we were a bit of an inconvenience at the end of the day when they'd done some celebrity versions, and then we were kept waiting for 2.5 hours. Yeah. And then it was like we want to go home, get this out of the way, and it just felt really impersonal. And I just think, if you compare it to something like the chase. You can imagine Bradley Walsh being far more personable, making you feel relaxed, having a few words with you before and after, and making it just part of the fun experience. But I don't know if it's just unique to Humphreys, but he just came across, and I don't want to be part of a huge Humphreys pile-on, but he didn't make us feel particularly comfortable or welcome, and perhaps that adds to the intimidation factor a little bit. But I would hope that with a new presenter, you would help people who are naturally nervous, to make them feel a bit more at ease, because it makes a better program, I think, when people are at ease, feeling comfortable. So maybe that's something I'd hope for. And if I was thinking about going back, I was asked at the time, would I go back before Humphreys had announced he was leaving, and I said I won't go back while Humphreys is presenting it. I don't like the way that he insists on the questions being so long. I don't find him a very warm host, and hopefully with the new host, it just will refresh the program a little bit, and I think that's probably what it needs, because it's become a bit stale. Feedback you see from people on Twitter and so on just really says it needs a refresh, and I think that's what it's going to get.
Yeah, well, there's definitely an opportunity there. Jonathan, I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a moot point to you now. As winner, did you get any more interaction with him?
Well, I mean, I'll say that I didn't. I also didn't see all that much of John at any stage, really. And I don't know if that was a consequence of COVID, of the lack of an audience, of any number of external factors that may have affected the relationship between the host and the contenders. So I didn't form that much of a personal opinion in regards to John himself. I will say that I thought I had nothing but great experiences of all the production team. I thought they were amazing at putting us at a rest, particularly in the stage of filming the VTs, which is such an unnatural kind of format to do an interview in. And none of us are sort of public figures or trained at doing talking heads. And I thought that the production crew on that and on the episodes of the quiz were really, really amazing. So I think no matter who the next host is and what he brings to the format, I think it would definitely be a good thing to stick with that production team, because I think they really do great.
Yeah, they certainly achieved something getting this series done in lockdown amongst COVID, with people dropping out, etc. Amazing achievement by the team to do that, and to be working remotely when they're not used to working remotely. A lot of us have experienced that. Sorry, Dave, you were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to refine Dan's point slightly. That I think you're right. It would be nice if it was a little bit more personable with the contenders and stuff. But that's very much off camera that you want that, and to a lesser extent, maybe a little bit between rounds. In the rounds, I think he's actually too conversational. This, I think, was part of his flaw. Is that he wants it to be a sort of conversational thing as opposed to interrogation, and that kind of means that he mirrors the contestants. So he speeds up for fast people, slows down for other if you're going slowly, and it's part of the reason why he wanted those longer sort of expositional questions. So I think if he ideally, Clive will obviously have to develop his own style, but personally I'd like to see it being in the rounds go back more towards the sort of rat-a-tat consistent pace of Magnuson, where it didn't matter what the contestant was like, it was always monopace, and then also every response to an answer, instead of the variable, do you repeat the answer? Do you just say yeah? Do you expand it, give it a full name or whatever? No, you just say correct every time. Really clipped and consistent. That's what you want during the rounds. Between the rounds and off camera, yeah, great. It would be very nice if they were a little bit more personable.
Hazel, you had your hand up very politely there. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I don't want to be the one defending John Humphreys, but because of my surname, obviously, there's a bit of nepotism going on. But I first did the show in 2011, and it was back when it was Media City, Manchester, the BBC were governing it all, and they had a different team of question writers, and the questions were definitely a lot shorter. So I managed to get 17 in a general knowledge round, and there's no way I would do that now with the length of the questions the way they are. So I kind of think you can't blame Humphreys for questions. I also think without the audience, he's a little bit lost, because everyone I've attended before this had an audience in there, had a warm-up guy, Ted Robbins was doing it, they had their banter because they were very blokey, but it did mean that he was more welcoming towards the contestants as well, and this was a different year. I had a little bit from him about the nepotism, but it was just very difficult for him to. You can't bounce off people without an audience, it seems. So.
Interesting. Emma Rees-Jones says, so sad to hear it's unwelcoming. When we finished first Mastermind Cymru, there was food and a free bar, good days. I had to say, when I first did it, I had a beer with John Humphreys in the green room afterwards. He came for a drink. There was always free drink and free food. I think that element of it will have gone with COVID. I assume that would probably be back.
Yeah, but it was certainly even as recently as last year. The crew were very welcoming, but at the end of the episode, John's out of there. You don't see him.
Yeah.
I tea in the dressing room.
Yeah. I said more to him sat in the chair when they were adjudicating on questions than I did actually outside of the chair. But nonetheless, I found he was perfectly affable. But Clive Myrie has an opportunity to bring his own spin to things, as we said, to kind of regenerate the show and bring a new audience in. And I think we all kind of hope, as John is saying here, can't wait to see Clive Myrie bring some new life into things. I think the John Humphreys era has passed, and we're now looking forward to the future. I'm trying to think if is there anything else anybody wants to kind of throw in as things that are takeaways from this experience. It's been a weird old series, from a contestant experience point of view. Any kind of other little stories or nuggets that we might not have heard thus far? Go on, Harry.
I'm interested to hear what the others say, because I think you'd expect that after we'd been through the heats and the semi-finals that the final would kind of feel the same. But for me, at least, I felt like I was in a very different state of mind before the final than I had been before the others. And I think, other than Jonathan, of course, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but we were all a little bit below where we were in our semi-finals score-wise. And I wondered whether, for me, I felt like there was a few things that I knew, but just in the pressure of the chair and the build-up to it, things were my brain was a little bit more foggy and not quite as on the ball. I don't know whether that was the same for anyone else or whether, final nerves.
Or if I may be cheeky, Harry, it was your mind was misty rather than foggy. I
made exactly the same mistake, Harry. Don't worry about it.
That wasn't horrible.
Yeah, but that one was the one that really threw me because I knew I had a 50-50 shot, and it wasn't a hard question. It was kind of like a bit of one of those easier side. I'd gotten them wrong one. I'd got a few wrong before then. So at that point, my brain was going, "This isn't my day. I'm out of this now. So I just got to get through it."
I was out when I got to the GK. So.
You also had the Coleoptera, Lepidoptera one, which it kind of stopped you getting into a flow. We had a question really early on where this is again from Emir. Most difficult or easiest question you thought of the night? I mean, the most deceptively difficult but also easy one perhaps was your missed fog. But I thought, Harry, looking at yours, the one about the relative of Robert the Bruce.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was really hard question. Really hard. You're in a good position to judge on that.
Well, I've written that question. I've asked and answered it several times. I could not think of it fast enough.
And I'm both Scottish and a historian, and I had no idea.
Yeah, well, I'm Irish, living in Scotland, and as I say, have written the question. Still couldn't remember it fast enough. I think it's a perfectly fair question. It's not that hard. He's in Braveheart, effectively.
Yeah,
there's a character based on him.
I did think that there were, and I think we all got a couple of questions that, if I'm honest, I don't think were worthy of a Mastermind final, because I think we all got a couple that were so easy. I think Hazel, you got one. You know, what's the full name of a chimp? Which I don't.
I know. I mean, I got some stuff on Twitter when I had my first heat, because my first question was what is the name of 007, and I actually rolled my eyes when I answered it, because you can't help the fact they do that easy question. But I seem to recall the easy question at the start used to be one that you could get wrong, and I was really shocked at some of the levels of them.
I noticed that through the series. I think overall the standard of questions is probably not that much changed, but they do throw in a few that are perhaps just too easy and would probably be better suited to the celebrity version, and perhaps, you know, I hope doesn't sound like question snobbishness, but I don't really think, particularly in a final, that
it's fair, but if it's just question one in the set, I think we can let it slide.
Maybe two or three of those each, but it's just something I've observed tonight.
I think what nobody wants, particularly in a grand final, is somebody to get the first question wrong and then be thinking, "Oh God, the nightmare that I dreamt about last night is about to come true, and I'm going to be getting all my questions wrong. And hang on, I've just missed one." And maybe they just want to kind of get you in there. Get you on the board, and then thereafter it's kind of fair game. And I think as long as everybody gets one of those, it's kind of fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is definitely nice to have a couple of softballs at the start, just so you can get into the rhythm of it. I sort of said a similar thing in our interview last week, but yeah, that was kind of what I was praying for in each of my general knowledge rounds. Just a few ones that I definitely knew at the start, just so I could sort of, get into that sort of routine of hearing the end of the question and then answering really quickly, so I could sort of build that momentum. And psychologically, that is really useful. So I think as long as everyone gets those couple of softballs at the start, then it is fair enough. And very occasionally, there are quite difficult questions very early on, and those people are incredibly unlucky.
I think that's probably we've kind of gone over our time, and we could carry on talking for ages. And Jonathan,
actually, just on the subject of people getting unlucky, speaking for the one who's not here, I think I should say, scoring along myself, I got more wrong on Frankie's general knowledge than I did on any of the rest. So I think she wasn't unlucky there. Now, I mean, it's not going to be enough to make up 8 points, but I think it's worth mentioning that she did have a tough set.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. Frankie was a fantastic contender throughout the series and indeed in the final. So we're sorry she couldn't be joining us tonight. We would have loved to have had her, and I know she would have liked to have come. The circumstances conspired against, but nonetheless, she was brilliant. She was brilliant on Brain of Britain last year. She was brilliant on Only Connect. She's a fantastic quizzer. And again, I think if we're looking at people who could go on to win the title in the future, Frankie is somebody who has got that in her. So I'm hoping that, as with the rest of you, you kind of take the positives from this experience and look ahead for future successes. And in your case, Jonathan, it's going to be Champion of Champions at some point. You're going to have to be facing off with Dave and others.
Hopefully no time soon. I really don't fancy doing that work again.
No, I'm going to use the subjects now.
Used them up. Oh dear, your kryptonite has now emerged.
Go back on it, Jonathan.
So was that Dan?
I was saying Jonathan could go back on it. He could be the first person ever to win it twice.
You're not allowed.
I definitely wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, no. I mean, this was like, it was cut out. It wasn't broadcast, but very much the what I focused on, my piece to camera immediately after the final was the best thing about winning is I don't have to do it again.
Is that a feeling you share, Jonathan? That kind of, oh, thank God.
I suppose to some extent during the heat, and actually when I first applied, I kind of thought, well, the great thing about Mastermind is if you do really badly, you can try again as many times as you like. But actually, what it was that when they told me that if I won the final, then I would be the youngest ever, that made me think, actually, I have a chance to do something here that I will never be able to do again. And actually, if I don't win this, I probably will never try again. And that made me even more keen to win, and made me work even harder to try and make it happen. So I'm definitely very happy that I don't have to do it again.
Yeah.
I don't know who MMQ is, but thank you.
Paula.
Sorry, was it Paula?
Might be Paula.
Hello,
She said
Paula. So yeah, yes, they did do amazingly, and we've got lots of people who've been kind of coming in late. Pam, I think, has been quizzing tonight. Congratulations, Jonathan. Bad luck to the rest. It was a fantastic series, fantastic final. I think it was kind of in the balance. It kind of played out really nicely that the target kept moving up and up and up. And in Jonathan, we got a fantastic champion that Dave can hand the proverbial baton onto. Yeah. And in 12 months' time, Jonathan, hopefully you'll be here speaking to somebody going, yeah, I had one hell of a year as champion, and it's one I'll never forget. But I hope you enjoy the experience that's going to be coming to you in the next kind of couple of weeks. As Dave said, make the most of it. There are a few times in life when you have kind of an achievement that you can kind of really tangibly quantify and enjoy it. And as for the rest of you, as said, you did fantastically well. Dave, you can now kind of rest easy that mantle is off your shoulders. That
more rest easy that I didn't have to that I didn't leave it till this year, because I'm really glad I didn't have to compete against Jonathan.
Indeed. And as Gerard says, enjoy the parties, the women, and the drugs. I think that's Gerard. Gerard also put in a comment earlier. He can't resist a gag, but he said about the VTs. When I saw Dan's running at the start of the show, I thought the filming for my bit would look very different. I can certainly empathise with. I was worried at one point when Claire was cycling and Dan was running. I was thinking, is this what I've been doing wrong all the time? I've not been this super fit kind of person. But
I had to work so hard at that. I had to do it twice, once with the car behind me and once with the car in front of me, and it was quite a steep hill.
But it's the beauty of the show that people from different walks of life, different ages, different backgrounds, can all compete on a level playing field. It's you against the questions, and the one who gets the most wins, and we've got a worthy champion. Thank you all for coming on. Thanks, Claire, Dan, Hazel, Jonathan, Harry, and Dave. It's been great having you guests. Hopefully we'll see you again at some point in the future on Quizzy Monday or something else on All Things Quiz. Be wonderful to get your thoughts when perhaps the pressure is not there, and you can look on at other people and have a bit of Schadenfreude and comment on them. But it's been great having you on. It's been great having everybody watching over the course of this series, over the course of our Quizzy Monday lives. We will be back, as I said before. Make sure you subscribe to be kept up to date with anything else that we're doing. We should have a Quiz Academy video coming out soon. We've got Quiz Week. Don't forget, we've got if this is the answer, what is the question? That competition is running, and every day we've got lunchtime quiz time. So don't forget all of that. But most of all, one final round of applause for the 2021 Mastermind Champion, Jonathan Gibson. And with that, I will say Thank you very much, everybody. Good night, and stay safe until we see you again. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gareth.